hardcore college basketball fans, seeing Luka Garza down in this area is probably disappointing. I get the comments, but for those of you who know his game and have seen him go up against teams like Michigan, UNC, and other like-sized bigs, he is often neutralized offensively, and that's not even mentioning that he'll be absolute food on the perimeter in the NBA. Unfortunately, Santi Aldama and Loyola fell short of the tournament, but he still remains one of the more interesting bigs potentially in this class as a 6'11 sophomore affecting the game in various ways. I'm not going to act like I've watched a ton of Patriot League and Loyola basketball this year, but the games I've seen definitely leave me intrigued. Ariel Hukporti is a mobile big out of Germany. I've been meaning to watch more of his recent progress over these last couple months, and I finally got around to it. He's still that athletic 7-footer with perimeter potential who is still pretty raw, but his best moments are great. Herb Jones isn't really going to wow you with any one piece of his game, he just wins. He's a really good defender, he's an effective all-around player, and though it's been a slower development for him at Alabama, he's made a jump this season and looks the part. He's someone who should have a fun tournament run and likely propel himself into the second round. While Duke just had one of their most strange seasons since Coach K has been there, Matthew Hurt was admirable offensively, scoring in a variety of ways from all over the floor, shooting 44% from 3 and making Dirk fades look routine. There's definitely a chance he stays, but if he doesn't, he's an instant offense option at the 4 spot. Aside of how effective he can be as a player on both ends, Tavion Kinsey has a good chance to sneak into a dunk contest early in his career like a Jalen LeCue or Cassius Stanley. He's unreasonably bouncy, he's got good feel as a scorer, I buy him as a shooter. He's a solid big guard or wing likely somewhere in that second round. A quick look back at tier 11. While David Duke may not be that potential first round pick that he looked like he might be early on in the year, I do like his game as a creative combo guard with great size. His struggles and inconsistency from deep definitely played a role in his ultimate fall to the mid-second round. Derek Alston Jr. has been a personal favorite sleeper pick of mine in this class. He's a long guard who has a knack for scoring the ball and a dad who has been in and around the NBA and the G League for years, and I think that gives him a bit of an advantage when it comes to being a pro. He cooled off a bit, but that February stretch against UNLV, Utah State, and San Diego State was a big time run. Justin Champagnie recently became the first player in Pittsburgh history to make first team All-ACC. Could another year at college serve him well? Probably. He left a lot more to be desired down the stretch of the season, and his outside shooting is still pretty far from being at an NBA level. But that energy and effort on the glass, potential versatility, and overall ability make him a draftable second round guy to me. Mamu has come a long way from being a 3-star prospect out of high school. He was chosen unanimous first team All-Big East and a co-Big East Player of the Year. He's got a unique skill set at 6'11". He can both shoot it and pass at a high level, and moves way better than someone his size should be. I like what Isaiah Livers brings to the table at a legit 6'7", 230. He's a terrific shooter, a winner, and someone who I think can bring great value to a team. He suffered a stress injury to his right foot, which sadly could have big implications on his future. Nonetheless, a title run for this Michigan squad. Virginia's Trey Murphy has been one of the best shooters in the country this season and an all-around solid player for the Cavaliers after transferring from Rice. He's a good athlete, compelling defender at 6'9", and doesn't need the ball to make an impact. If he decides to return, he's one of those players I could see taking a leap over the summer and being a late first next year. If you want to talk about starring in your role, Joel Ayayi is that guy. He's been highly efficient, affecting the game in nearly every way possible as a 6'5" guard, and he's been shooting the ball better than ever since the last video, at about 52% from 3 on nearly 4 attempts in the last 7 games. Like I've said before, he's one of, if not the best cutter and mover without the ball in the class, and someone I think could rise into the top 40 on draft night, just based on him being a more safe pick. It's not really fair to compare them, but I think Julian Champagnie might be the better pro prospect out of the two of them. He's a much more talented scorer, more consistent shooter, and he's a bit taller and longer as well. Julian was easily one of the best players in the Big East this year, and a solid bet at that 4 or 3 spot. It's pretty easy to brush aside a guy like Jason Preston when his team plays in the MAC and had to cancel their games for about 2.5 weeks due to COVID. But he's here. He just lit up the MAC tournament and is looking to do the same in the big dance. I know you probably heard this a lot, but he looks strangely like a young LaMelo Ball out there at times. He's a super talented guard. The size, the length, the rebounding, shot blocking ability, Charles Bassey has what you want out of a second round or possibly late first round big. He's got some potential as a shooter that hasn't been completely added to his game yet, but it's certainly there, and the 76% from the line is positive. I think he's one of the better bigs in the class, and outside of the injury concerns, he's someone I'm seriously considering if I need help in the front court. It feels like every year teams are in need of guys like Grant Williams, Saddiq Bey, the Morris twins, those who can play multiple positions in the front court and don't need the ball to be effective. Add Kessler Edwards to that list of players, sort of in that mold. Edwards will likely end up closer to the first round than being undrafted. And those names just came up at the top of my head, so don't take them as comparisons or anything. This is how Tier 9 looks at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised if Marcus Bagley went back to ASU next year. The big concern is that injury risk. Considering his brother's history, that may be too big of a risk for him to take, given that he's probably a comfortable draft pick this year, despite playing only one time in the last 2 months. I changed my mind on Aaron Henry a couple times throughout the season, but he's firmly in that early second round area even with the inconsistent shooting. Versatile wings who make plays for others and take pride in defense are usually good bets to carve out roles. Terrence Shannon is still in the mix for one of those late first round spots as a slashing and defensive oriented wing with potential as a shooter. There is still quite a bit up for grabs, especially after the top 20, so Shannon is here for now, but I wouldn't have an issue if someone had him in their mid to late 20s even. Despite being older, Chris Duarte has proven his NBA value over the last several weeks. He's a Pac-12 Player of the Year and is no question one of the best shooters available. He's also a pretty talented scorer and pick and roll ball handler. I see him as a sleeper pick to sneak into the first round of the draft, much like his former teammate Peyton Pritchard. Terrence Clarke is still a good bet at that wing spot. He magically reappeared in that last game UK played in the SEC tournament and was honestly solid in those 10 minutes, though the stat sheet won't really show it. It was a weird season for him, and the fact that he missed so much time is concerning, but I like the upside. I still buy David Johnson as an all-around guard, and he still just turned 20, but he's probably not the caliber of player I thought he would end up as to start the year. Part of how he looked was the system he was playing in, so context is important here, but a lot of it was his inability to assert himself, specifically as a jump shooter. Jeremiah Robinson Earl is a player I'd really like to have on my team. He's a perfect complementary guy at that 4th spot. He's really skilled offensively and has made great improvements on defense. I think whoever gets him will have a guy who becomes a contributor in some fashion during his career. Alright, we have a Greg Brown assist update. He got 4 against TCU, which was 40% of his total on the year. Other than that, he's been a bit disappointing down the stretch of the season, and a return to school would honestly probably be good for him. The flashes that he's shown in that raw athleticism will keep him as a potential first rounder, but I think another year of big time reps on a competitive Texas team would serve him well from a long-term perspective. The game comes really easy to Rokas Jokubaitis. He's a crafty lefty who plays at his own pace and makes his impact felt in pretty much every EuroLeague game. He's a borderline first and someone I could see myself moving up once I really get into all of his film. Now this is about where I think BJ Boston belongs in this class. There is still so much potential there, but I just can't consider him anywhere near the lottery. Unless he goes to a team that's going to pour time, effort, and energy into his development, especially physically, and just play the long game, you're not going to see something magically different early on in the NBA. And that's just fine. Right now he's both the guy who looks spectacular against South Carolina and Arkansas, and the one who you forget is even playing many times, most recently against Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Stat lines in complete freshman seasons don't ultimately decide your draft spot, but if I'm in a GM seat, I don't know how I consider him until the 20s at the highest. Isaiah Todd has one of the best face-up and fade-away games from a big prospect that I can remember seeing. As the season progressed, he showed a bit more potential on the defensive end. While he needs to work on his game inside, attacking the basket and passing, there aren't a bunch of 19-year-olds running around the G League doing the things that he was. I've seen him ranked all over the place, but that raw talent is deserving of first-round consideration to me. If there's one thing Cam Thomas can do, that's get a bucket. You've heard it before. The shot selection and the rest of his game definitely leave you wanting more, but it's going to be tough to pass up what he does have the potential to do as a scorer. Some will think this is far too low, and believe it or not, others will think this is even way too high. Day'Ron Sharpe is the best traditional center prospect, and thinking about it, I'd actually be pretty surprised if he made it out of the first round for that reason alone. He's a gifted rebounder, can hold his own on the perimeter, and he's an intriguing passer too. I'm interested to see how he looks with NBA spacing and playmakers. Ben Mathurin has definite first round talent, though if he stays another year, he's immediately in my 2022 lottery. He still lacked the level of confidence and feel offensively that I thought we might see him develop after that 31-point outburst, but nonetheless I do like him a lot as a longer term prospect. Deuce McBride had a few sequences in that first half against OSU in the Big 12 tourney that I saw turn a lot of heads on the timeline. To me, he's in that first round area as a combo guard who can defend multiple positions and score in a few different ways. Isaiah Jackson's potential is sky high behind his ability to affect the game defensively, and despite his fouling issues and rawness offensively. He's always been a ridiculous athlete, and through starting to look back at some of that Kentucky film, he's been one I like a bit more. Davion Mitchell is an absolute dog on both ends of the court. He's my pick for best on-ball defender by a sizable margin, and he's someone who's been really effective from all areas and in a ton of situations offensively. I can't quite put him over Jared Butler, but taking myself out of college basketball and into the NBA, Mitchell's game might translate better, but we'll have to see. Now to Jared Butler, he's easily been one of the better players in college basketball. Butler is someone I could see being in that Desmond Bane realm of rock solid entering the league. He does a lot of things well and is by all accounts an integral part of the winning culture down in Waco. You ask me who I do not want to guard in this class? Bones Hyland is near the top of that list. He's an electric scorer with unlimited range and a Louis Vuitton trunk filled with moves. Leading this VCU team to the tournament, Busy is likely to get busy as the madness commences. Daishen Nix seems to also be on that list of polarizing players in the class. He's not going to check the athleticism boxes, his shot needs some work, he's got a bit of an old man game, but he makes his teammates better and has an advanced feel for the game. I'm betting on him getting a bit of a leg up by learning from those G League veterans and attacking his weaknesses earlier than the other guys will. Ayo Dosunmu's improvement is an underrated storyline this year. He worked on his game, became a much better perimeter player and scorer, and ultimately ended up being one of the best college basketball players. I still have concerns about him in traffic and attacking the rim at times, but he's a dog who's been playing through injury and still leading his team to success. Roko Prkačin has continued his consistently solid play for Cibona and remains one of my top international prospects. He can affect the game in multiple ways and in a few different roles, and he's getting more comfortable on the perimeter and continuing to develop as a shooter. Adelaide's Josh Giddey has been looking a lot more like the guy I thought he could be after those first couple games in the NBL. He's beginning to shoot it better, confidence is growing offensively, and he's just getting more comfortable overall. I say he probably rises into the next tier by the time of the next board. After feeling like he was on ball his life every day in high school, it's like I haven't seen Josh Christopher play in like 4 years. I don't think he's going to really move from this area or tier by draft time. The potential as a scoring guard is obviously there, but it's more of his all-around game that has kept him in this area for me. Now the big riser on this board is Tre Mann. He's finally started to turn that corner a bit and display that aggressiveness and assertiveness you want to see out of first round lead guard prospects. I've really enjoyed watching him take control of these games and realize that potential that we've been talking about all year. He's back much closer to where I had him in the beginning and one of the most fun to watch when he gets it going. There's going to be some difference in opinion on Usman Garuba. I don't think he has the offensive potential or feel to be a lottery pick, but he's great defensively and high energy. I think situation and development infrastructure is going to play a big part in how he pans out. Alperen Şengün has a chance to be one of the best players to ever come out of Turkey, and certainly one of the best currently in the NBA. He's a super talented and skilled big man who has more than held his own in a variety of high-level international settings at just 17 and 18 years old. He's continued to light it up over the last few weeks and might be worthy of the potential lottery pick tag. Every time I try to think of something more interesting to say about Corey Kispert, I usually fail. He's the guy that while he doesn't have the upside of many of those ranked around him, I'd be shocked if he doesn't become an important rotational piece early on in his career. He's a safer bet, and while that won't get you in the lottery, the late teens or early 20s are calling his name. The left ankle injury robbed us of getting any more Sharife Cooper games, giving him 12 total on the year, in which he averaged 20 points and 8 dimes. He's dynamic and a metronome at the lead guard spot. Those concerns about him as a shooter are still very much there, but for me, and I assume many teams, he just does too many things you don't often see to pass up, even at just 6 feet tall. I rarely go looking for other big boards or rankings, at least until we get closer, but Jalen Johnson was one of the more interesting. I've seen him slotted as far back as the early second round. He's far too naturally talented for that, and I believe he had more positive than negative moments, despite what was an inconvenient ending. Out of all the fringe 4 or 5 men that this class has to offer, Kai Jones has some of the most raw potential on both ends. His recent performances, specifically that first half against Oklahoma State, were amazing. He might need some time to develop physically and get used to the speed of the game, and definitely improve his decision making, but I think there's a lot there. And that is Tier 5. Number 12 is UConn's James Bouknight. He never missed a beat coming back from that elbow injury, and has looked terrific down the stretch, maybe minus that tournament game against Creighton. He's about as good as it gets at that scoring guard spot, and is someone who I think can make great noise in the tournament. Zaire has had his ups and downs throughout the season. He had a long layoff in the middle, and then unfortunately had to miss the Pac-12 tournament due to a passing in his family, and then of course the ensuing COVID protocols. He's one of the most gifted wings in the class, who's going to be hard to keep out of the lottery. Energy, effort, and great potential both defensively and as a playmaker from that 4 spot make it easier to overlook Scottie Barnes' limitations in a half-court offensive setting. He's had his moments, most recently in the ACC title game against Georgia Tech, but it's still very much a concern. Hypothetically, if he was just a Zaire Williams level shooter, I think we're talking about another prospect who easily knocks on that top 5, top 6 door. Jaden Springer remains one of the best guards in this class, and a guy I think still has so much potential to grow into an excellent offensive player in an NBA organization and with an actual role. He's ahead of the curve exactly 1 year younger than Cade Cunningham. Franz Wagner has made the biggest jump of anyone in the class in terms of ranking from the beginning to now. In simplest terms possible, he's really good. He can shoot, pass, defend at a very high level, and he plays his role well for a really talented Michigan team, and I think there's a level of potential still to be unlocked for him. Over time, he's proven himself to be a lottery pick, and another one of those versatile forwards or wings that the league covets. Keon Johnson has been truly convincing over the last several games. I've been pretty skeptical about his upside offensively, but there's a bit more there, and I think he'll eventually fit better within an NBA offense than he does at Tennessee. He's an obvious alien level athlete, and someone who I know teams would love to work with and help develop. Look back at Tier 4. Tier 3 includes 2 wings with really great potential, the first of which is Jonathan Kuminga. Kuminga got off to a terrific start in the G League before his play started to sort of tail off, and he ended up missing games due to injury. I still do think he belongs in this area, but I'm much less confident about it than I was before. He's got a lot of work to do as a shooter. His shot selection isn't the best, he doesn't have a great handle to get to his spots, but he remained confident and impacted the game in several ways. He's still only 18, and his potential versatility on the wing is obviously sky high. Teams are going to be jumping for joy if he ends up getting past about, pick 6, 7, 8, 9 in that area. That upside we've been mentioning with Moses Moody has really started to peak through these last couple games. He's pretty much everything you want out of a wing, and though 3-and-D is thrown around a lot, I think he's got a ceiling much higher than that suggests. It's been great to see what he's capable of offensively, with just more assertiveness and his teammates being more conscious of his abilities. In tier 2, we have two of the guys with what might be the most popular name among hoopers around this age, the Jalen's. At 4, I have Jalen Suggs. Suggs sort of vanished in the popular conversation, being that Gonzaga was going to win every game by a minimum of 15 points, and the marquee matchups against Kansas and everyone else happened in like November, until that primetime performance he put on against BYU in the conference tournament. He's still the number 1 traditional size point or combo guard in this class to me. And at number 3 comes Jalen Green. Green was really impressive in the G League. He's got the makings of a potential 20 points per game scorer at minimum in the league. We've talked about it before, but those guys like Zach LaVine, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker hold the blueprint for him to follow. That is the type of player I think he can be at his best. Will he become that good? That's a different conversation. But going up against grown men fighting for their careers, Green was still one of the best on the court on a nightly basis. He showed things as a passer, and to a lesser extent defensively, that have me excited for his future. And in tier 1, once again, we have the duo of Evan Mobley and Cade Cunningham. Something spectacular is going to happen from these other players, or I'm going to have to learn some new info for them to get dethroned at the top of this class. Evan Mobley is that dynamic modern big with both a tremendous upside that you want in the top 3 and a floor that makes picking him a lot less stressful for front offices. He checks all the boxes from character to shot blocking to scoring potential. It's all there. Watch those conference tournament games and try to convince yourself otherwise. He's got a chance to join that group of elite bigs in the modern NBA, and that's why he's in the number 2 spot behind Cade Cunningham. I can't wait to finish Cade's scouting report video because the dude is just so good. It's almost criminal that I'm going to have to keep it in that 10 to 12 minute range because he put on an absolute show all year and proved that he is worthy of being the number 1 pick in this class. I've tweeted about it many times, but outside of his handle and average athleticism at the NBA level, he doesn't have many weaknesses at all. He's by all accounts a hard worker, and if he makes those things a primary focus going into his rookie year, I think we get a high impact player from the jump, regardless of the situation or position that he's playing. That's going to do it for this big board. I appreciate you guys for watching. We've got